Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Rotoworld Fantasy Basketball Q&A. I'm Raphielle Johnson. Today's show, I'm joined by Eric Samulski of Rotoworld. Eric, thanks for filling in for Noah today. And how's everything going in Stanford right now?
Thanks. Everything's going swimmingly right now.
Yeah.
You know, we're covering some basketball news. We're covering some football news. We're prepping up for the two games on NBC and Peacock tonight. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff today. We get to see the Lakers with LeBron back. That team is super fun to watch right now. So I'm excited for that one. Even though I'm an East Coast dad, so that's a rough late start for me.
Yeah, I'm out west, and even the 9 p.m. tip for myself is pretty rough, but it's all right. You know, it's good to have network broadcast basketball like during the week. So yeah. I think that's the positive for sure. Kawhi Leonard will also be on the floor in that game. You know, his second game back, so it'll be good to see what he does. He's still under a minutes restriction, but a little Kawhi is better than none at all from a fantasy standpoint. So.
For sure. I'm excited. I still can't figure out why John Collins doesn't work on the Clippers, but it doesn't work right now. Yeah. But that's a lot of some interesting things to keep an eye on.
Agreed. He was someone that you kind of thought he could be like a good fantasy option. Hasn't happened. We're at the point where you're basically to look for other teams to find some deep league options in the Clippers because it's been pretty rough beyond James Harden and Ivica Zubac this season.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like an older team, and I know like Kobe Sanders is getting minutes, but it's not really translating to fantasy value right now. And so, you know, it's a Clippers team that probably like was just crossing their fingers and saying, hey, we're going to make the playoffs, and you never know what can happen. And the playoffs right now are looking like a little bit more of a stretch than I think we anticipated.
Yeah, no Bradley Beal either, so
yeah.
Sure didn't help. But we've got we got a couple questions already in the queue, so we'll get going now with our Q&A. Papa Coldwell is back. 12-team 9-cat head-to-head, debating between a dedicated streaming spot or rostering Brandon Williams and Ace Bailey. Would you rather drop one of these two and stream or keep both? And I got a little more info on that, too. He also has P.J. Washington, but he seems like a hold with Lively and Gafford being fragile. And AD and Kyrie's future is highly uncertain. Do you like him over Brandon as well?
I think the logic behind that makes sense, right? It would not surprise me if we've seen AD's last game in a Mavericks uniform, despite the fact that they don't want to say that. I think a little bit like in that sense, in 9 category at least, like it's a little bit of what you need, right? Because what Brandon Williams brings to the table is very different than like what PJ Washington is bringing to the table. I mean, you're looking at somebody who had 12 assists last week in a game. The rebounds aren't going to be what PJ Washington has. So it's a little bit more like if I need those steals and assists, I'm leaning with Brandon Williams. He's not shooting really well of late. So I think I lean PJ Washington in almost all cases there between those two guys.
Yeah. Now, in terms of his strategy in the first statement, now, are you looking to stream, say, PJ and Ace, keep Ace Bailey and PJ Washington, or open up one of those spots to stream someone?
Neither one of those guys to me feels like, I know he said in that first one, like it was a dedicated streaming spot around like Brandon Williams or Ace Bailey. I guess I lean towards keeping Ace Bailey.
Yeah.
And I know that that's like the stupid thing we do in fantasy where we're like, hey, he's a rookie and he's getting minutes and you never know like when things are going to pop. But that's kind of where we're at, especially on a Jazz team that has no reason but to just play him tons of minutes. But I don't think you need to roster Brandon Williams rather than keep a dedicated streaming spot. I mean, I think especially in a head-to-head, like having that streaming spot to look at things on Thursday and Friday and say, you know, what do I need? And can I go out and get a guy to help me win blocks at the end of the week? Or can I go out and get a guy to help me win 3-pointers at the end of the week? Like, I think that's probably more valuable than just saying I have to have Brandon Williams.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. They're one of the teams that has 2 games after the holiday. So 3 total this week. You got some teams that have 3 more left starting with, say, either tonight or Wednesday. And that's where you can find some good streaming value from a scheduling standpoint. So, you know, to your point on Brandon Williams, he's shooting about 39% for the year. if you can take that hit on your fantasy team, then maybe someone you consider. But I think Ace Bailey, with the improved playing time now and what he could potentially be after the calendar flips, like 26, where you get to the trade deadline, I think he's the one I would definitely want to hold on to in this situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm in full agreement with you in terms of like Brandon Williams, PJ Washington. You can hold on to him because of the necessity, but you're not really expecting too much. I think I would rather stream in that spot. Okay. He's got another question. Same league. Would you look to sell Isaiah Hartenstein while he's still this highly ranked? I love the production, but I wonder if come fantasy playoffs, he'll be in and out as they prep for another finals run.
I'm the last guy to ask a question that would imply anything negative about Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah.
Because that is like the embodiment of everything that I thought I was as a basketball player in my own head. And as a Knicks fan, like I love Hartenstein. But I don't see how anything he's doing is fluky. Like I think you're only selling him because you say, okay, when the Thunder are eventually 100%, which is ridiculous that they're not 100% right now. But when they are, maybe they, spread the minutes around a little bit. They can take their foot off the gas with certain guys to let them kind of like, heal up. I know this is a prep for another finals run question. I just think it's too early in the fantasy season to be thinking about like, when the fantasy playoffs roll around, like what's going to happen with Hartenstein? Like I just would like him to be on my team to help get me there. And if we're like a couple weeks away from the fantasy playoffs, I can start having these conversations.
Yeah, I think the big question is what happens when Jalen Williams gets back on the floor, just because of the usage that he's going to command. But the thing is, Hartenstein's still a really good fantasy player when his usage drops, because of the rebounding, the secondary assists, the things that he can do when the ball isn't in his hands. And he's not someone who's going to have the ball in his hands a lot anyway. So I would rather hold on to him. Just because he may not be a top 50 player for the rest of the season doesn't mean you're looking to sell him.
Yeah.
Like you can still get really good value out of him.
And look, you're talking about like what's going to happen weeks from now. I mean, we love Chet, but it's not like he's a guarantee to stay healthy for the whole rest of the season. So like, yeah, maybe Williams comes back and maybe Chet's out for 2 to 3 weeks with something. And so it's just you're playing that like what happens game, but the minutes may never change. And so like I'm not ready to sell him off unless there's a more guaranteed or a more clear sign that like a minute change is definitely coming.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know if they end up lightening the workload of these guys late in the season anyway. They're in by far the tougher conference. So they may not have that leeway, even with this hot start to the season, to where they can say, we're going to start resting guys late. So, yeah, Hartenstein is certainly one that I would not be looking to move. Maybe like an AJ Mitchell, a little further down on that roster. As good as he's been thus far, he's someone that, even though we don't know exactly when J-Dub's going to be back, you may want to consider, seeking some alternatives on the trade market, because that's someone I feel a little more comfortable saying his value may drop later in the season.
Yeah. I'm looking right now, like he's 40% rostered in Yahoo format. So like he's, nearly 50% there, which means there's a lot of people that could be, moving off of him. Yeah. What's funny is like, how good the Thunder are from a real basketball standpoint, and you look at like their fantasy dudes, and we got Jalen Williams, who's not currently healthy and on the floor, and then it's Shea and Chet and Hartenstein, and those are the only other guys you're really counting on. So even if when Jalen Williams comes back, it's hard to say like who really takes a hit from a fantasy standpoint, other than, to your point, Mitchell.
Yeah, they've got a lot of hot hand guys too. Like if so-and-so's hot and they can go on a run for a few games. Mitchell, we mentioned, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins. I think he's currently out too due to injury, but those are all guys that, like, even Alex Caruso doesn't score much, but when the steals are there, he's someone who can be really good in fantasy.
Agreed.
All right. Daniel, thank you for tuning in, and he's got a question here. Andre Drummond and Noah Clowney must roster. Any preference between the two rest of the season? 10-team 9-cat head-to-head.
I mean, you can correct me. I don't think either of them are must roster, but I much prefer Clowney. And maybe it's recency bias because he had a pretty good night against the Knicks, even though when you've got no Mitchell Robinson and your big man is Huck Porty and Towns, opposing centers can certainly have good nights. But Clowney has put up decent performances, and he's getting consistent minutes. Like, you're looking at the last few games, like 37 minutes, 37 minutes, 39 minutes. There was a 30-minute game in there last week against Washington. So if you're going to give me Clowney at like 27 to 35 minutes, if not more, on a team, that needs somebody to score with, Cam Thomas out for a while, or somebody else to score, because obviously Michael Porter Jr. Like, I kind of like what Clowney is doing. There's a little bit of production across the board, and so I would go there.
Yeah, I think the case for Drummond is the same as always. Joel Embiid, we don't know when he's going to be back. We don't know how long he's going to be able to stay healthy for once he returns. So that's the reason they keep him. But I think I lean Clowney as well, just because he's one of those young players that they have to get reps for as they rebuild here. He's not at risk for like a late season, pull the plug, sit him down on the bench, just because who else are you going to put out there? You've got Day'Ron Sharpe, who's more of a 5 than a 4. Danny Wolf, I think they look at him as a little bit more of a 5 than a 4 as well. So, but he's going to have to – I think Clowney's going to have to play plenty in Brooklyn just to see what they have, if he's someone they can build with for the next few years. Drummond, you know what you're going to get. Right now it's a high just because he's starting. And then he becomes a security option once Embiid gets back. Yeah. So I think I would lean Clowney for the rest of the season.
And we talked. I mean, it's in the blurb from him, up on the website, which obviously, most of the people here probably check those out, but you should go check those out, because notes like, hey, he's basically a top 50 player over the last 2 weeks. Clowney is. And so those are the type of guys. Like, we had that earlier question about streaming spots. Those are the type of guys where you're like, why not? Like, let's see how long we can ride this out for, and when it starts to fizzle, then move off them and find somebody else.
Yeah. Those blurbs are anonymous, but I did write that one. I appreciate you mentioning it.
Of course.
All right. Daniel has another question. This one's about TJ McConnell. Showing some signs of promise in terms of 12-team category league value. Is he doing so? Is he showing some signs of value, I should say?
The minutes are still tough for me to fully get behind. We saw 22 minutes in the last game out against the Pistons, but it was consistently hovering in like that 14 to 17 range before that. And so, like, sure, if he can push 22 to 26 minutes a game, that he's going to always dish out like a fair amount of assists, and he'll probably score double digits if he's getting that many minutes. But if he's going to live sub 20, it's just hard to rely on it, especially if you're talking about a 12-team league. And so, like, I'm probably at the point right now where I'm monitoring it, but not necessarily jumping in. And maybe that means I miss out. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You think about it, pulling up his game log. Last night was his first game over 20 minutes this season. So maybe that's part of the ramp up, given the injury that sidelined him to start the year. But you look at the Pacers. Let me pull up their record here. Apologies to the Pacers fans. They're 2-15. So I think at this point, one of the big moves that may have been a bit underrated was them getting their first round pick back during the playoffs. Yeah. So now they have something to kind of, you're obviously not going to play towards losing, but they have a tangible asset that they can use to strengthen that team once they get Halliburton back. And I think McConnell is someone who later in the season could be at risk of having his minutes taper down or gets those injury management nights, even for like a hangnail or something like that, to be honest with you. So I think that would be my concern. He is showing some promise now, but like Eric said, the playing time is a concern unless he can consistently get into those low to mid-20s.
honestly, I don't think you have to apologize to Pacers fans. I know that like it was rough because they were right on the brink last year, but like they're going to get Halliburton back next year with multiple picks in a really good draft, and teams in the Eastern Conference are not fans of that, and so they can take it down here.
All right, another question from Daniel. The most recent Derek Lively update is not encouraging. What should weary managers with occupied injury slots do here?
Yeah, that's tough because I feel like it's so league dependent. I mean, Mark Stein reported that I believe that I'm going to read the exact quote. It's feared the Mavs face an extended injury absence for Derek Lively. So it's like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Extended could be 3 weeks. It could be 2 months. Lively without AD, and we're assuming that it won't. AD is going to be gone at some point. Like, there would be value there, but I don't know that Derek Lively is somebody that I need to hold on my injured spot with this nebulous timeline. Because what if I wind up holding him for 2 months? Like, I don't know that Derek Lively is somebody I need to hold for 2 months if I'm dealing with all these other injuries. And it's the NBA, so injuries pop up all the time, even if it's somebody missing 2 games. And, I might rather have that spot.
I'm dropping. I think I'm not waiting around because you still have Daniel Gafford in the mix. Then beyond him, I know Anthony Davis may not like to play center, but there are going to be times where they have him on the floor as a 5. So once he returns, but I'm dropping Lively because I don't think the upside is worth the wait, especially if you have occupied injury slots already.
There's a lot of chatter over here in New York. I think Knicks fans would love to facilitate a Towns for AD type of deal. I don't know if the actual teams would want that, but I think the Knicks fans are done with having Brunson and Towns on the court defensively at the same time.
I feel you, but as a Knicks fan who doesn't live in New York, I say absolutely not.
Okay.
Because Towns, he stayed relatively healthy. There have been some bumps and bruises along the way, but I'm not rolling the dice on Anthony Davis at this stage in his career. As talented as he is,
they got to figure something out defensively. But yes, I agree on that part.
Yeah, you can't have 2 immobile big men in your rotation in addition to Jalen Brunson. So they're going to have to, I think around February, they'll have to figure out something because hopefully Mitch gets healthier, but he's not moving too well these days. All right. Mela Kato would like to know, would you accept an offer from someone giving you Michael Porter Jr. for Domantas Sabonis if you had Sabonis in an IL spot?
It's a tough one because on the surface I would say no. Yeah. But, Sabonis was out. We blurbed on Thursday when they reported 3 to 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. The Kings have no reason to rush him back.
Yeah.
Because my gut is the Kings want him 100% healthy so they could try to trade him.
Yes.
They're not rushing him back to win games. So you're looking at that's probably 4 weeks, if not 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at like maybe beginning of January getting Sabonis back. Now, he could come back and get traded to a team where his fantasy value is awesome, but it's probably not getting traded to a team where he had the type of usage he was getting in Sacramento on a team that was, bottom of the standings. So you're getting like a 5-week head start with Michael Porter Jr., who is on a team where he's going to get that kind of usage that Sabonis was getting. So yeah, I could see making that move.
Yeah, it's all about, do you need the production now, if anything? Just because Porter, I feel like he's a shutdown candidate later in the season.
For sure.
On a team that they made it clear they're prioritizing getting the best draft pick possible. So having someone who could go
draft
out there,
the best player possible, or just a bunch of who knows?
I hope so. It makes sense just because this draft class is loaded, based on what we've seen so far from this and the group that could be eligible. And you got someone who's a threat to score 30 plus a night on a really bad team. So I would imagine he could be someone who gets sat down later in the year. If you need the production now, I would do it. But if you don't, I don't know if I would be as quick to do it just because of what Sabonis brings to the table. Even though I was low on his fantasy value before the season started, just because of so many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, in Sacramento. But I don't know. I lean towards doing it.
I lean towards doing it also.
Yeah. Okay, Daniel would like to know, is Donovan Clingan a sell high, or are we chilling?
I think it depends on what sell high is, right? I mean, like Clingan was somebody people were really interested in coming into the year.
Mm-hmm.
The start of the year wasn't good. It's been getting better. And obviously, they are shorthanded now with Holiday and Sharp on the shelf. And so there's been more usage to go around. But on the season, if you look at Yahoo in 9 category, he's the 67th ranked player.
Yes.
But I think he's a top 100 player. So, if somebody's going to offer you something that's kind of around the 60th or 70th ranked player for Clingan, I don't know that I'm selling high. If the last 2 weeks of production has somebody offering you a clear top 50 dude, then sure, I would probably take that.
I'd listen on the top 50. I don't think I would do it, though. I look at that rotation in Portland. It's him, Robert Williams. We know his injury history, and then Jan Hansen, who really isn't ready for regular season NBA basketball right now. So I would hold on to him just because of his importance in Portland. And I think this is who he's going to be. I don't think it's a fluke or a mirage. I think this is who Donovan Clingan is going to be for the rest of the season and hopefully for years to come. All right. JJ, welcome back. Are we still holding beef stew with the team being healthy? Seems like his minutes are getting squeezed to about 20 per game.
Yeah, so I'll use this as a self-promotion plug. Every Thursday on the site, I put up an article that is just a minutes report, and it has every single team's minutes for players' minutes for the last 3 games, 5 games, and 10 games, so you can kind of see how trends are working. And so, Isaiah Stewart's minutes, he's averaging just over 23 minutes in the last 3 games. If you include the last 5 games, it's just over 22 minutes. He spiked 28 minutes against the Hawks a few games ago. But yeah, I think we're living in the mid 20s. And that is enabling him to post kind of usable lines, but you're looking at maybe 10 to 12 points and 7, 8, 9 boards. And so it's not useless per se, but it's not like what you were getting when he was pushing 30 minutes a game.
All right. I have a trade proposal for you.
Okay.
Isaiah Stewart for Santi Aldama.
I was very in on Aldama coming into the year, and it didn't really go my way early on. The production has really been there lately, and so I'm gonna go with Aldama there because I think that's where if you had talked to me 2 weeks before the season, that was my clear answer, and so I'm going back to it now.
Yeah, I think it would probably be tough to get someone to accept that based on your reasoning there, for sure, especially with Zach Edey getting hurt last night. So even though Aldama's not going to be on the floor with Jaren Jackson Jr. very much, there are more minutes to go around between him and Jock Landale. So that would probably be a tough sell. I'm just kind of looking at the rankings. He would be comparable to Stewart right now, but you'd probably have to aim even lower than that just because of the decrease in minutes recently. I would try to trade him before dropping him, to be honest with you, because I think there's still some value to be sold there. All right. This is a timely question based on what we saw last night. Is Keegan Murray for real?
Yeah, I mean, what's for real? I mean, I think that he is is he going to go 26-14 regularly? Probably not. Yeah. But we just talked about Sabonis' use on a bad King team, and now Sabonis is out for 4 or 5 whatever weeks we were suggesting before. So why not have Keegan Murray fill that role? I think also there's he's not being traded, but DeRozan could be traded. Zach LaVine could be traded if anybody wants those guys. And so I think Keegan Murray is locked into the most realistically consistent role of anybody on that team because that extension he signed means he's not going anywhere. I thought that he was pretty good last year when he's healthy. He can hit from deep. Like I think he needs to be rostered in far more than the 40% of leagues he's currently rostered.
Yeah, he should be rostered pretty much everywhere. That's 40% is absolutely crazy for a player of his skill set in terms of his rostered percentage. The key for him is, can they clear the debts of some of those veteran wings, between now and the trade deadline? Because that's what's really going to unlock him. You still have LaVine, DeRozan. That's kind of tough to navigate. Malik Monk, if you're going to throw him in there as well. But he's not going to go for what he did last night in terms of the stat line. But he can be a really good fantasy asset for the rest of the season. He is certainly for real in my opinion.
But there's a chance that he goes for that line again if those other guys are out of the picture. But you're talking about that like weeks, months from now.
Yes, agreed. Okay, Kendrick. I got offered PJ Washington and Cedric Howard for Jaren Jackson Jr., 12-team 9-cat. I want to keep him, but with how he's playing, is it time to move on from him?
I love Cedric Howard, though, by the way. Like, I think he real basketball, fantasy basketball, whatever. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
My gut is to keep Jackson. I know it hasn't looked really good, but it hasn't looked really good, and he's still a top 100 dude. So, like, it would not surprise me if in a few weeks we totally forget that we were even doubting whether, he was, or what type of performer he was. I know that he maybe, it's possible he's also not 100% right now off the ankle injury. I know he's like playing games, but like, those things, like he got 29 minutes in the last game, but it doesn't mean he's fully healthy. We don't know, I don't know. We don't know how he was compensating for that before. I just think this is a really talented dude, and Washington and Coward are like good pieces, but I would need somebody far more established if I'm going to trade Jaren Jackson.
Agreed. Like the defensive stats are low, and for someone like him, who really doesn't rebound all that well, he's averaging just over 5 per game. I think that's his lowest number since his second season in the league. Mm-hmm. But he's never had a season of 7 rebounds per game or more. So you're not expecting much there. But with the blocks and the steals being down, that's negatively impacted his value. With the type of player he is, I think he can get those numbers back up. So I don't think I would make this trade. Like PJ, while he's playing heavy minutes, it hasn't exactly translated to category league value. And then you're basically saying Cedric Coward for Jaren Jackson Jr. plus a little more with Coward. I don't think that's enough. So, yeah, I think you want to hold on to him, have some faith, give him a few more games coming off that ankle injury, and then see where you stand there. All right, and the 14-teamer, is Isaiah Collier still worth rostering or better to use as a streaming spot?
I'd personally lean streaming spot. I feel like what was the game that he put up 14 and 11 a couple weeks ago in that Pacers game, and I guess there was a 16-9 game in there as well. I think he popped up in those games, and I think it was like great that he was getting the huge minutes and the usage in there, but to me, he wasn't somebody who was gonna sustain, and so I think like maybe what you saw last night is like the real bottom, but I don't know that he's necessarily a must roster guy when he's probably going to be playing like low 20s minutes at best.
Biggest issue for him is that Keontae George is actually playing like a competent point guard this season. So that's your issue there. I think I would stream that spot because I don't think Collier's done enough to where you have to worry about him being pulled off the waiver wire immediately. Right. So I would stream that. All right, we got a couple of Derek Queen questions coming up here. First one in a keeper league, is Queen for Cooper Flag trade offer, is that too egregious?
I mean, I guess is the question like, are you trying to trade away Derek Queen at this.
I think he's trying to trade away
flag because I don't think it's egregious. I mean, shoot your shot, but I would never in a keeper league. I'm not trading Cooper Flag for Derek Queen this early in their careers, right? But I don't think the person who has Flag is like horribly offended if you make that deal, because Queen is also a rookie and playing really well and has a little bit like of a fantasy friendly skill set. And so, I get you throwing out the offer, but I don't think that that's something that should happen.
Yeah. If you don't ask, the answer is no.
Exactly.
I guess that's how we kind of categorize this, but it's not egregious, but I would not do it. I don't. You can go ahead and throw it out there, but I don't think the other manager would be too receptive of this offer. So. And secondly, are we worried about Queen's minutes based on yesterday's move by the coach, or was it matchup based?
Well, I'm worried because I picked him up in our high score league at the start of this week because I was like, I'm going to give it a go now. Like, I was worried about the minutes, and then I was like, I'm going to give it a shot, and then the minutes went down. I think my gut, and I know that they haven't come out and said this, but my gut was just like they just stuck with lineups that were working last night, and so guys who were hot were getting more minutes than they might normally. But I think that that's just an interesting thing to think about with Queen, where he's not immune to that in the way that like some more established guys may be immune to like losing out to the hot hand. Like, that's just part of the role with him in New Orleans for him as a rookie, and like with having similar type players on the roster around him. But no, I don't think like he's all of a sudden an afterthought.
Yeah, yesterday was more matchup based than anything. You're going up against the Bulls who didn't have Vucevic, so you needed a big who could attack the offensive glass. Like Messi grabbed 10 offensive rebounds last night, so you have him out there. Jose Alvarado gave them a spark at the point, so Jeremiah Fears lost out on minutes there. So I think that was more about matchups, and as Eric said, riding the hot hand, because both of those guys played really well last night, and the Pelicans got a much needed victory. So I'm not worried about Queen's minutes. He'll still play plenty, and it's a long season. And where they are in the standings, it would behoove them to give him and Fears all the minutes they can handle as the season progresses.
Fears was really interesting to me in preseason. I think he's a pretty solid player.
Yeah. I agree with that. He didn't really give you much in terms of three-point shooting early on, but I think, what was he? 2 for 3 from deep last night. I think he certainly has that in his skill set. So I'm intrigued by what both of those rookies bring to the table. And given what New Orleans did trade-wise, they need those two to hit.
So bad. The not having a pick in the first-round pick in the draft that's rough.
Yeah. Okay. Late to the show, do we know what happened to Zach Edey? He took a hit to the head during the first quarter. No word in terms of like concussion protocol or anything like that. So we'll see what happens. If he sits, Jock Landale's probably going to be a streamer. I don't think he goes for 26 and 10 like he did last night. First ever 2010 game for him, by the way. But he played good minutes as a starter when Edey was out to start the season. So he would be the one to kind of look for there if Edey goes into the protocol. All right. Back to Brandon Williams. All right. Thinking about his role for the rest of the season, any chance Kyrie is held out?
I think there's a good chance Kyrie is held out. Like, I just don't know, especially if you wind up trading AD. Like, why are we rushing back? Why are we getting Kyrie back? I think the bigger thing was like they had Brandon Williams supplant like D'Angelo Russell, and then they gave D'Angelo Russell back the minutes, and then they had Brandon Williams take back the minutes. And so, like, if you're thinking about just the rest of the season, I don't know that you can just say, like, hey, Brandon Williams, he's the starting point guard because Kyrie is out for the whole season. I think his role is more secure than it would have been had all of this drama with AD and all that not gone down, and there been a more realistic chance of Kyrie like coming back in the second half. But I don't. It doesn't change like our earlier discussion about Brandon Williams for me.
Yeah, if they were 14 and 5 instead of 5 and 14, we'd have a different conversation about this. But what I'd also say is their draft pick in 26 is the last one they have control of until 2030. All those deals they made to kind of surround Luka with talent, those are coming up due pretty soon. And you don't have Luka Doncic anymore either, as we don't need to remind you guys of. But, yeah, so I think, if anything, I think Williams can have a prominent role the rest of the season. Whether or not it's good enough for him to be rostered in like 12-team leagues, I don't know. But I think he'll still play plenty, and they definitely need another lottery pick to come in there. So I think there is a good chance Kyrie doesn't play this season. All right. Given the mess in Memphis, is Cam Spencer someone to closely monitor in deeper and/or keeper categories?
I think for sure in deeper leagues, at least right now. I mean, he's running backup point behind Vince Williams with Ja out, and it's not like Vince Williams is like some insurmountable, obstacle in front of him. If Cam Spencer, starts, he's playing pretty well, so continues to play well. And then again, like, is there a chance that Ja is gone in Memphis? Like, sure, I know they keep saying it's not going to happen, and who really knows, but it's within the realm of possibilities. So in deeper leagues, you're picking up somebody who's performing now, who has a role for at least the next couple of weeks, and who has at least a path to a role for the rest of the season. And so I don't mind that.
Yeah, I would definitely keep an eye on him. In addition to Ja, you got Ty Jerome out. Scottie Pippen Jr. probably won't be back until January or so. So he's certainly worth watching. I think the keeper question will be something that's influenced by what happens with Ja Morant. Like, if they hold on to him, I don't see much that you can gain from holding on to Cam Spencer in a keeper league. But deeper formats, I think that's a more realistic situation in terms of adding him to a roster potentially. All right, Kool-Aid would like to know, what should I do with Paul George? Is he worth a hold and see? That can't be Paul George or streaming.
I think
that's the only PG I know.
I think it's Paul George. That's what I'm reading from that. And I think you're holding Paul George. I mean, he's probably not, like, he's going to be on minutes restrictions and not playing in back-to-backs and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to have to do that dance for the next few weeks. But you're getting usable production when he's on the court. And so, I'm not – like, if you want to trade him away and let somebody else have the headache, like, that's a different argument. But I'm not, like, cutting him to stream the spot.
Yeah, he will be on the waiver wire for all of about 10 minutes until the claims start flying in. So if you wanted to pull off a 2-for-1 where you give up another player in addition to George and free up a spot that way, I guess go for it. I don't know if I would, but that's your alternative. Like, you aren't going to just drop him.
Agree.
Yeah, player of his caliber, I don't think you hold on to him just to kind of move on after a few games. Like, the ceiling is a bit too high with him. All right. He also wants to know, what is up with Grayson Allen?
Guess a really bad quad injury. I mean, it's there's really not, like, I was looking for research purposes. I was looking to try to find some sort of update, and all we keep getting is, like, when he was ruled out Monday. And it's just like he's ruled out, and then you wait a couple of days and he's ruled out, and they haven't said anything about the nature of the injury other than that it's a quad injury. I don't know that it's going to be, like, super long term. I would expect it's not going to be, like, that much longer, but I don't know.
Yeah. Last week I read they were waiting for the swelling to go down. That's kind of the issue with it at this point. So that'd be a pretty nasty quad contusion to have that happen.
Yeah.
And also, you look at how well some of their guys are playing, like Colin Gillespie, Royce O'Neal's giving good value, even Jordan Goodwin, who got to start last night. They don't really have to rush him back, So I think they may be exercising some additional caution here, but I think once he gets back, he's going to be a really solid option for your fantasy rosters for sure. Okay, what's your rest of season value for Kelly Oubre once he returns from his injury? Now that the team is healthier.
I think this is just a guard team now, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got Maxey and you've got Edgecombe and Grimes, and like, I just don't know that you go back to playing in the same way that you did before. And so, like, yeah, like Oubre can play in that kind of like fast guard centric offense, and so I think he will still have value, but you're not getting huge usage games unless guys are out. And then if you're also dealing with, like, you're talking about fully healthy, like, PG and Embiid and those guys also on the court, it's just, there's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
I just don't think how many fully healthy 76ers games do you think we're getting? When like literally everybody is on the court. Like, you're probably not getting many until the postseason.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you look at his ADP, is like in the 140s. So what he's done thus far before the knee injury exceeded that expectation by a good distance. I think that's what I'm kind of expecting, like a late round value guy at that point. So what he was before the injury, I don't think he's going to be that type of player unless Philadelphia is still relatively unhealthy. So that's how I evaluate Kelly Oubre. James would like to know, Tyler Hero's back. Will Norman Powell keep it up? Or will Hero just eat into Jaime Jaquez Jr.'s minutes?
Yeah, so like I just recorded a video on this for the site after Hero's game yesterday, and it's like, okay, Powell was out last night and Wiggins was out last night.
Yeah.
So we don't fully know how Hero is fitting back into the rotation. I think Norman Powell is good, and so the fact that he was playing well, it doesn't surprise me. And so I think Jaime Jaquez is the one who's going to lose minutes. I think Ware, even though they're not at the same position, I think Ware will lose some minutes when you start getting like Wiggins and those other forwards back in the mix. And so I think Powell is still going to have like a really solid sixth man role on that team.
Yeah, I think that's the big question. Does he come off the bench when he returns, or does he replace Pelle Larsson in the starting lineup?
Yeah,
I think
that's. I mean, yeah, there's probably aspects of that of like, who do you want being like a second team creator and like being able to carry some of the scoring burden.
Yes.
But if if Jaime Jaquez is now like more of a playing fewer minutes, but can be kind of like a little like microwave option off the bench. Like, can you put Powell in the starting lineup? And so we'll see how they, mix and match that.
All right. Jared McCain worth picking up?
I'm going to go with no. I know the minutes restriction has been like expanded, but we just talked about like with Kelly Oubre, like what happens when the 76ers get fully healthy.
Yeah.
And so if you're adding Oubre back into that as well, I just don't know how robust the role is for McCain, other than like hopefully he knocks down a lot of spot up threes when the guards can kind of drive and kick.
Yeah, he's more of a watch list guy for me at this point. Let me pull up his minutes just to see. Yeah, he got up to 26 minutes on Sunday, so that was double his last appearance before that. Maybe he hovers around that 25 to 27 minute range for the short term while you're still waiting for Oubre to get back. But I think that's probably your best case scenario for him in terms of fantasy value here. Is Jakob Poeltl's back issue in the rearview mirror?
I mean, are back issues ever in the rearview mirror? I feel like
as two gentlemen who not exactly old, we're at that prime age where your lower back starts to act up.
Always.
And he's a high level athlete doing this.
Yeah.
So
I think it's like it appears to be in the rear view enough. I mean, like he played 27 minutes in the last one. That's great. He was rested though
Mhm.
on Monday, like because of the back-to-back, and so it's hard to say. It's like in the rear view when we just had a moment where he had a rest day and then played, and
Yes.
then 19 minutes the game before that, and so I think it's always going to be something that's managed, and maybe with Barrett out, they're going to lean into letting him play more minutes. And then Barrett's only day-to-day right now, so he might not be out for that long.
Mhm.
And so then you don't have to lean on him for 27 minutes.
And the other thing is they've got another back-to-back over the weekend here. At Charlotte on Saturday, then at New York on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like a prime spot to rest him for the Charlotte game.
Yeah.
Just because, with all due respect to the Hornets, they aren't as good as the Knicks.
Right.
So if you can have like a relatively healthy Poeltl in Madison Square Garden, it's probably going to be best for them. So it looks like he's been healthy in terms of when he's played, but it feels like the back-to-backs are still going to be an issue for Poeltl, at least in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to the Mavericks. Derek Lively, second, will be out for a while. Should I go after PJ Washington?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about that earlier, so I think we're both kind of into using PJ Washington.
Yeah. You can. It's not the most exciting move, but given the role, it makes sense to go after him now, see if you can get some short-term value. All right. James, what do you guys think about Bilal Coulibaly? Is he worth holding or drop for the hot pickup? And who will you drop him for? You need some suggestions.
I don't mind Coulibaly. I like him because we know he's probably getting between 25 and 30 minutes every night. The defensive value is there, and so like his shooting is going to come and go, but they want to play like ridiculously fast, and they want to create, even though their defense isn't good by like net rating and by all those kind of metrics, like they want to create turnover opportunities to get easy buckets. And so I think that helps to lift his scoring floor a little bit because he's not creating tons of opportunities on his own. But like the defensive value, I think provides a safe enough floor that I don't mind. I don't mind Coulibaly. Like I think it depends who the hot pick is that you're talking about, but he's somebody I have no problem having on my roster.
Yeah, looking at some potential options like a Najee Marshall or Kyle Kuzma, who are like similarly ranked right now. I'd probably be willing to roll the dice on Kuzma just because Giannis is out, but you're losing defensive value for either one of those guys in comparison to Coulibaly. So I would probably hold on to him for a bit, to be honest with you.
I agree. I have a weird soft spot for this Wizards team, by the way. Yeah. I think they're kind of fun. Like I know they're terrible, but I kind of think they're fun. Like I like watching them play because it's just like it is very fast and they get up in your face and like they're young and they're athletic and like it's just they're kind of enjoyable.
Yeah, the front office has made no mistake of what their goals are with this group, so that kind of helps as well. But yeah, they play hard. That's the fun thing about watching that group. Like, even though it doesn't really work out very often in terms of the result, but you're going to get decent effort from them 48 minutes.
Yeah, and if you're watching a game, there's inevitably there's one half where it clicks, or maybe a quarter where it clicks, but they're competitive enough for a stretch in the game, and you kind of like see how it could work a little bit, and then they can't maintain it, but that's okay.
All right, back to Brandon Williams. Is he trending down to a drop in 14-team leagues with Ryan Nembhard in the mix? He returned from a knee injury last night.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this. Like, even without Nembhard in the mix, like I think he was trending down. Yeah. Again, the drop is dependent on who you're picking up. Like, I don't feel like I have to get rid of Brandon Williams because I do think the role is secure enough to an extent. Like, I think that he's, going to play in the mid-20s minutes and has the chance to spike like big assist games. But I'm certainly searching to see who else is out there. Yeah,
in the case of Nembhard, D'Angelo Russell only played 10 minutes last night. So that factored into Nembhard getting 17. 7 assists, good numbers there, but he's just 1 for 7 from the field, 2 points. So if you were to go after Nembhard, you're betting on the assists being relatively consistent in that regard, more so than the scoring or anything else. But yeah, I would probably look to another team before I try to add someone in place of Brandon Williams from his own squad. To be honest with you. All right. What should I do with Kyle Filipowski? When I want to drop him, he puts up stats. What's going on with the Jazz? They played love over
him. What's going on with the Jazz is like a much longer discussion, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, Filipowski plays. To me, it is like a pretty. I know they played love over him, but like we're talking about a guy who's maxed out at like 26 minutes, even with Kessler out. So it's not like he was all of a sudden playing. He was like playing huge minutes, and then all of a sudden he got bumped down to like no minutes. I mean, his minutes are fluctuating a little bit. The rebounding is good. You know, Nurkic is like really struggling to shoot, and so I think like that is like leaving the door cracked open. But Filipowski is not somebody that I feel like I need to be holding on to.
Yeah, if you hold him, you're just going to need to have some patience, because with the vets, I feel like the Jazz are just putting them in the shop window, so to speak, to see if they could potentially move him. Where you talk about Nurkic, Kevin Love. I mean, Kyle Anderson played 24 minutes last night. He shot the ball well, but on a rebuilding team, I don't think he serves much use.
Right. I think that's what they're doing. You say they're putting them in the shop window is like they're also like they're taking advantage of like, oh, you're playing well, I'm going to keep you on the court. Like Love that one game where he like started off really hot. I don't know if it was the last game. Well, he didn't play Golden State game, so I don't know if it was the Lakers game or the Thunder game. I think it was the Thunder game. Where like you start off hot, like we're going to keep you on the court because maybe you're going to have a huge game, and then somebody's like, "Hey, what do you want for Kevin Love?" Like that's how it's for the Jazz right now.
Yes, even in that Thunder game, he played 13 minutes. So it's not like he's taking away too much from a Filipowski. If anything, you're worried about some of those other young players in terms of the competition there, but I think he'll be all right. It's more of a long-term play when you have Kyle Filipowski rostered anyway. Yeah. So. Okay. Need to drop one to activate Brandon Miller. TJ McConnell, Royce O'Neal, Bilal Coulibaly, Vince Williams Jr., Andre Drummond, or Noah Clowney?
I think you're getting into guys who are across a lot of categories here, so I think it depends a little bit on what you need. Like we already talked about McConnell from a minutes perspective before, of like you're looking at like kind of a McConnell Williams vibe right now, where Williams has a more consistent locked in role for the short term at least, while Ja is out, and McConnell doesn't. Draymond Drummond and Clowney are kind of like we talked about them before in a would you rather, but those are big men, and so you have more like field goal percentage needs there and rebound needs and things like that. So I think it's dependent on you're cutting one of those 2 point guards on one of those two, or one of those two big men based on like what your roster needs.
Yeah.
And I said before, I'd rather have Clowney than Drummond, so maybe that answers it. And I guess I'd probably, in a vacuum, rather have Williams than McConnell if we're talking about like, what do I need for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think I'm dropping McConnell. I'm dropping McConnell here.
Okay.
Because you still have Andrew Nembhard starting, so I think that he would be the one that I would drop. And yeah, I think Royce O'Neal, in terms of 3-pointers and steals, he's a little too valuable to drop. But when you have a scorer like Miller, I think you can part ways with McConnell, especially with Vince Williams on your roster as well. So.
Agreed.
All right. Daniel, thank you for the questions, and happy Thanksgiving to you as well. And we got a question here. Is Tari Eason worth stashing in an IL spot?
I'm gonna go no. I just think, like we talked about this with Lively, like I just think there's a lot of you're gonna really use that IL spot in in fantasy basketball, and so there are very few guys that I'm stashing for like a month on the IL.
Yeah, if this were the Rockets team of even last year or 2 years ago, I would say he's worth stashing. But this is a lot better group overall, and I wonder what he'll be able to bring to the table fantasy-wise once he's healthy. May not be until about Christmas when he gets back on the floor either. So I would not be stashing him in an IL spot. I think there are going to be some better uses for that spot in Tari Easton.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, looks like we've got all the questions. So if you're not opposed, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up for the day.
Sure.
Now you've got the weekly Thursday column on the Minutes Report. What else may be in the pipeline for you in terms of just general Rotoworld stuff, not just limited?
Yeah. So if you're an NFL person, every Tuesday I'm putting out my defense streaming rankings, and there's a video that comes with that, which we link to, which is on YouTube here as well. So that comes out all the time. You can follow. I do a lot of social media content and just graphic content, and that's on Instagram at Samulski_sports. So you guys can all follow that there. And then I think we're planning some quarter season tentpole content coming up for both regular fantasy basketball stuff and basketball stuff. And I being in the New York area, I'm frequently going to not really the Nets games, but the Knicks games, and trying to get some traditional basketball journalism content up there. I think next on the docket is the Charlotte game next week. So I don't know. We'll see if we can get an interesting story there on or the Hornets or maybe the Knicks get a little bit healthier and we kind of see them take a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's all sounds really good. Looking forward to that. I've our weekly Wednesday injury column coming tomorrow morning. So you'll get some injury updates and some potential streaming targets there. Following for that, we've got our schedule right up every Sunday morning, and then Monday morning, release the weekly top 200 rankings.
Nice.
Ranking people is very difficult.
Yes, ranking people. I do it for baseball for us. I have to rank the starting pitchers all the time. And I'm really glad I do it once at the beginning of the preseason and once right before the season starts, and then I don't do it again until the middle of the year. The constant ranking it's tough. It's a hard racket.
I'm always afraid I've forgotten someone.
Yes, and you usually inevitably always do. There's always somebody at the last minute. You're like, oh shoot, like that guy.
Yeah, definitely. So, thank you all for tuning in once again. Enjoy the holiday. Hope you get some good eats and enjoy some time with family, football, and all that good stuff. And Eric, thanks again for coming to help out.
Of course, and for having me.
Yeah, have a great rest of the week, everyone.